Hello and welcome to Low Code Campfire. I'm Patrick Anderson. I'm filling in for Dale today. He is on a well-deserved vacation, and we're going to give this a go here. So the Low Code Campfire is a community gathering for people who use Plantain app. And this happens on Fridays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we encourage everyone to come with the idea of sharing and seeking help from others. So that's the idea here. We want to, if you have things you need help with, ask for help. And if you have something you want to share, please share it. And yeah, be ready to help the people that you're working with here. All these webinars are recorded, as is this one being recorded right now. And they are published to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel by scanning this QR code or just going to youtube.com/plantainapp. And there's lots of valuable information. We try to put a table of contents on every single episode so that you can easily get to the information you want. We have a pretty simple agenda. We'll start with some introductions, and then we'll move into first call to see if anybody needs any help with anything. And then we're going to potentially look at any new contributions to the Campfire website, to community feature requests. I don't think we have any submitted topics for this call, but when we do, we check those out, and then we have our dark corners and ghost stories where we ask people to share just strange things they've come across using Plantain app in the past week. So basic guidelines: if you have a lot of noise in the background, or if you're currently not talking, keep yourself muted and be courteous to each other. And this group is really always good with that. You can submit questions and topics ahead of time by scanning this QR code here, and we encourage you to do so. And with that, we'll move right into introductions. So good morning. I see that we've had some more people join us. That's great.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Well, we will move into first call and see if anybody has anything on their mind they want to get some help with, or an idea they want to share.
I didn't come with anything today.
How about Jim?
I was gonna say I do have a question.
Oh yeah, sure.
Something that just came up in something that I was doing just about like an hour ago. In the action to read all users, there is the order by, excuse me, not the order, the where clause, but there's no indication in that action what we can filter on because we don't know what you're pulling. Is it
Right.
just from the users table directly? Are you doing like inner joins on roles as well? Like, can we filter based off role?
No.
Like, what do we have access to?
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. Definitely, there can be more detail there on what we actually have access to. But no, it's the users table. Yeah. So yeah, so it's not pulling further data. Did you was there did you try another property and have trouble accessing it, or you just wanted to know whether or not it was pulling any other user data from other tables?
I just wanted to know, basically I have a situation where I have a site that used to in the past have public registration access, and we have since closed that down because now the data is basically all public, so we don't need users at the moment. So I'm looking to clean up that user database portion of it and just delete all of these, extra user accounts that are in there. But I have to filter them out because there are some user accounts that are real, which are us as the employees on the back end. So I want to filter them out based off of roles, whoever doesn't have any particular roles, those are the ones I'm looking to delete, but there's no direct way of doing that using the actions from what I can tell.
Yeah, probably that's true.
I mean, I have my own way of doing it through, SQL, but I
yeah,
figured
sure.
if I
Yeah.
could just do it through the actions, it would save me from having to write that SQL. But if I have to do it through SQL on a list, that's not a big deal.
So Ben, the way I'm doing that on a similar thing is I run through the list of users and I look for the role that I want. If a user doesn't have the employee role, for instance, then I'm deleting that record, but I'm using it in a condition to with the has role option in a workflow.
But in order to do that, you would have to load the user record first on each loop.
So I am right. I'm running through. I don't know how I don't know how many users you're talking about because mine only has probably about 700 users and we have to refresh it. So I just run through the loop of users and um, and then I just delete the ones that don't have a particular permission.
And that's not time consuming for that workflow.
No.
I mean, I would think, pulling the users out and just getting a list should be relatively quick, but then as you're processing every single user, you have to load that user into context, then do the has role check, then load the next user, so forth, so on. That load user isn't adding additional time for every single one of those.
Not, this is on a employee refresh where we're loading. There's 4,000 employees with 700 managers, and we delete all the manager records, and because only managers have access to the application, and we delete all those and then reload the entire database. And the whole process takes about 45 seconds. So it hasn't seemed slow. It just depends on the quantity. So
Yeah, I'm probably in the same vicinity as you. I think I'm about somewhere between 700 to 800 users that I'm gonna have to go through and check. But I didn't go through that particular method of loading the user because I was maybe obviously falsely under the impression that doing a load user for each one of those was going to be a bit on the time consuming side. So I was trying to just basically see if I can just pull out the SQL from the very beginning, filtering out so that the list that I'm running through are only the people that I want.
well, while we're on the call here, I'll go look and find that workflow because I don't remember loading users every time, so I don't know how I would have filtered them. So I'll go look.
Yeah, because I was gonna say the has role I don't believe accepts a user ID. So in order to do a has role, you'd have to load the user context first.
Yeah, I'll go look at that. I know we're getting the same result. I just don't remember how we did it. I'll give you an answer before we depart today.
Thanks.
I feel like I need to check this out now. I'm going to do that. Let me drag this over to a screen where I'm sharing. I can't remember for sure, but I feel like that. But it's yeah, right. Nope, because I was wondering if this did accept a user ID, but I do. Yeah, I think that's right. It does not. One thing that I was wondering about, Ben, but I don't think this is terribly efficient, and I wouldn't necessarily but I'm just wondering if you thought about it. I think that you could potentially use a subquery in the where clause, but that's just a thought. It's a side thought there.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, but trying to think. Yeah, I'll have to see if that works. I
Mhm.
just don't know if a correlated subquery within the where clause is going to
And also for the benefit of
be as efficient.
anybody watching this in the future, I wanted to show the exact action we're talking about, and this is the action that so the read all users action is an action for the for Plantain App's users entity, and this is the where clause that Ben is talking about.
I mean, moving forward, I mean, again, just an idea. In any of those read all actions, even entities that we create, maybe right above this where clause or below it, wherever you want to put the help text, maybe dynamically show a listing of all the fields for that table that it's reading. So
Yeah,
people right there, you don't have to go hunting anywhere else. You can immediately see what can I filter on.
right. Yeah, I agree with you there. Yep. Something else that that we have, I think I believe we have a ticket in the system for it, or maybe it's just a feature request. But that I've suggested is that we have the ability to uh, um, add a filter here for connected entities, so that we can if we had a well, I guess it doesn't work with the built-in entities, but one of our own entities, so that we could read all, this entity where it has a record in a connected entity, if that makes sense. So I think that would be a good improvement to this as well. Any other thoughts or ideas about the user's entity from anybody?
I do want to mention for Ben's sake that there are a couple modules in the DNN spot that you could use to clean up users based on roles and such.
In the DNN storefront, you mean?
Yeah, there's at least two. One of them is a Mandeep's product. Another one is an older one that still works. It's something about BH or something like that.
Yeah, unless it's a free product, it's unfortunately not something I'm going to be able to utilize. We deal with POs here and whatnot, and it's just getting authorization to purchase anything is extremely difficult.
I think I mean, I personally, I think I kind of like Jim's idea to build a workflow that does it by looping. I understand that has the potential of being a lot of calls to the database, but I think that it's a very deliberate and clean way of doing it.
I mean, I have a stored procedure I wrote a while ago, and as we were talking, I just wrote it. So I'm pretty much, I got my code
Yeah.
already done. But
Sure.
it basically, you can feed the portal ID, the user ID, and a comma delimited string list of role names, and it just brings back a true false if the user has any of the roles you specified. So you can actually look for multiple roles. But I just it's a function. So I threw that into the where clause, and I just basically said, pull me out where the user that's pulled out, whatever, the user ID is, and then the employee role equals 0, meaning that they don't have the employee role. And it literally pulls out MySQL in less than 1 second with all of the records that I want. So instead of looping and, like you said, doing all of those database calls one after another, which is a lot of network traffic or whatever. This is literally one database pull, one call. What you're going to get back is a list of all the users specifically, within that range you want, and then you could just loop through those. So instead of pulling, for example, 4,000 and only processing 900, because you're checking each one, you're only going to pull out that 900 from the very beginning, and you're just going to process those.
Yep. Yeah, definitely agree that is the more efficient way of doing it. Absolutely.
And I just found my workflow, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing a SQL load to begin with, not calling individual users.
So you're specifically only pulling out the user IDs of the people that you're looking to delete.
Yeah. So we're joining to the roles table
Right.
And
yeah, there's similar idea to what I'm doing. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a function to do it, but basically the function does the same exact thing.
Yep. Yeah, and then we're just the workflow's getting that and putting it into a list, and then we're running through the list and deleting those users.
Yeah,
Cool.
from a CPU performance perspective, that I can understand taking like 45 seconds, because like you said, it's just you're only processing the records you actually want to process. But I was thinking, if you did it the other way around, where you pull everything and then loading each user individually and checking and then doing something, I'm like, I was surprised when you told me 45 seconds. I'm like, I thought it would have taken a lot longer.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten how we had done it. So
Well, thank you for checking on that.
Anybody else have anything they want to bring to the group?
I have a question
Sure.
on the regex replace function.
Okay.
I have a big string of JSON coming in as text that I need to replace some values in. Specifically, I have to replace a pattern in there with a GUID. And I thought, oh, this would be easy. And I load the JSON into the regex replace function and find the pattern and say replace with GUID new. And what I get back in my text is GUID new. And I don't know if maybe the replace with doesn't allow tokens. There's a checkbox in the regex replace action that says apply tokens on pattern, but the documentation has no real documentation other than there's a checkbox that says apply tokens on pattern. And I don't know if it just isn't meant to do that, or if I'm doing it wrong.
I think I'd have to look at it. I'm trying to pull up the action now. But
I can share my screen if you want to see it.
yeah, I mean that'd be great. Yeah, if you want to do that, that's absolutely great. Here, let me
I was just going to ask, what's your regex pattern?
I'll show you. Let's see. Where'd my little share screen? I want to share that screen.
That's not a valid pattern for regex.
It matches it. You mean all those zeros? That is the text that's coming in. That is a string text that's coming in my
That I understand, but regex is its own language.
right.
There are specific commands you have to group them and indicate the beginning and end. Like, I don't see a caret in the beginning, which typically means start of string, start of match, or whatever. I can't tell what's at the end, but just a series of numbers like that, I do not believe is going to properly select and match against that. When they say a pattern, it's not just a straight pattern that you're looking for like that. Like,
But you're saying that you're
there's more
getting
to it.
the replacement, correct? But it's not.
Yeah. I'm getting the replacement, but what's coming out in the output is
And
that.
why do you have it double?
That was me testing to see if maybe there
Oh.
was a say, you know. Yeah, I mean,
Did you try establishing? No, are you in a loop here? Where can you show us what's behind this?
right now this is just a simple.
Okay. I was wondering if you possibly, I don't know, if you establish the GUID before you get to the
Well, in this case, that the ID is set is set for each. There's multiple values that I need to establish. And the other way I thought of doing was, okay, I'm just going to load this line by line into a list and process it that way. But I've never tried to use the regex replace function before.
So what you're saying is it's replacing it with just the word GUID : new?
Yeah, with the brackets and everything. Yeah. So it's like it's not recognizing it as a token, and maybe it's not.
I was
Maybe
just going to
it's-
say that almost sounds like the replace with is not my token aware.
Right.
Yeah, that might be the case. I was trying to look for an example where I think maybe I used, but I can't. I mean, I can't find it that fast. But
I mean, that's what it's acting like, and then the I see the apply tokens on pattern checkbox here, and I couldn't. I'm assuming that just lets you put a token over here in
yeah.
under pattern, but if but if the consensus is it probably is not token aware, that's the result I'm getting also. That okay, it doesn't look like it is.
And I'm just, Patrick, I think you said this unless I misunderstood. Did you suggest putting the GUID new in a token before this and
Yeah,
using
that's
that?
that's what I was suggesting as a possibility. I don't know for sure that would solve it, but I'm just wondering if maybe it might.
Well, I can show you.
So just so you establish the GUID before you get to this action, and then and put that token into the replace with. And I think in this, I mean, the way you have this configured right now, it wouldn't make a difference as far as I mean, it would get your new GUID and it would just pass it to this.
Right. But here's my source data.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming in like this. And if I'm passing the entire JSON string here, it's going to be in there, in this case, 20 times. So if I establish the GUID.
Oh, you're trying to make each of them a separate.
Oh,
okay,
that wouldn't work even the way you're doing it, because it would only generate the GUID new once and pass that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to
You'd have to loop it.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where I was going to go next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd have to break out that JSON and pull out each of those individual records and replace the GUID for each one individually if you want each one to have a new unique GUID.
Okay.
If you try the replace on the whole thing at once, you're just replacing all those zeros with one GUID that you generate, and then they're all going to be the same.
Okay. That makes sense too. So I'll go to my alternate plan of loading that up and replacing, just working through the rows and in the list and replacing them as I go through. So, okay.
Well, cool. Thanks for sharing your screen and showing us that.
Yeah. Now I just have to figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Too many windows.
Okay. Anybody else have something they want to share? No, if not, I had something I wanted to just run by you guys and see what you thought. Let me bring this up. Let me first show you the you can see here that on this site I'm playing with some Shakespeare, so just ignore all that. But what I wanted to talk about was automatic reordering and any strategies you guys have used for using the drag and drop for creating a specific order. You can see that's actually a little bit slow. Maybe I need to refresh this because it's not working the way I expected it to. Let's check this out again here. So let me try this again. If I move this up to 1, there we go. Now we're getting the behavior I expected. So you can see that as I move these, I'm getting the automatic update of these. And I know that many of you have used this, and one of the things that this is the ordering here is based on a few parameters, and one of the things I struggled with at first when I was looking at this was getting them to always be just, in this case 1, 2, 3, and 4. And sometimes I would get like the last one would be incrementing up higher, or I'd lose my first place and it would be 2, 3, 4, and 5, that sort of thing. And I know that I'm sure that some of you have struggled with the same thing. So I just wanted to show you what I came up with and see if anybody had better ideas on that. So here is I'm actually just calling a workflow, so I'll just show you that first, and then I'll show you my workflow, which is actually just a SQL query. I could have put it in here, but I wanted to be able to reuse it in another place if I needed to. So this is just runs a workflow and then does a data source refresh. Here's the workflow. So basically, I'm using a CTE to get a row number for everything, and then I'm updating the ord for all of the items to equal their row number. And the thing that bothers me about this, it works well, but the thing that bothers me about it is that I'm touching every record every time I do a reorder, and I don't necessarily like that. So I just thought I'd put it out there, see if you guys had ideas. And specifically, the reason why I'm doing it like this is because I also am looking at the ID of the lesson within a specific section and the order that's within that specific section. So I have some different things I need to look at. Has anybody else done this differently? Or how have others done this?
I saw some things on.
I was gonna say I'm still looking at your SQL, trying to read it and move on.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Trying to follow it.
I've seen some logic that's been posted online, and I've used it successfully myself, but it's not too different than what you're doing.
Oh yeah, okay.
It
so-
involves saving the order as a decimal instead of or floating number instead of an integer. So that
Okay.
you can cram something in between, like if you wanted between 2 and 3,
Yeah.
make it 2.5, but you still have to then touch every record that's beyond the one that you're
Yeah,
changing.
right. You do have to touch the ones that are beyond, to make sure that they
As an alternate, I wonder if you could, you stated you only had 4 values. Do you think that's going to be constant, or is the number always going to be really low?
in this case, yeah, it'll always be really low. So it doesn't it might go up to maybe 15, I would say at the most, but yeah, it's never going to be a huge number. So I think that it works well in this case, but I was just trying to find other possibilities. And I thought about that idea where you push the number, in between, but I really wanted to stick with an integer.
Yeah, it's very clean that way.
Yeah.
So what if your numbers were very spread out? Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, they were stored as 100, 200, 300, 400, or maybe
Right.
even not those numbers themselves. Maybe a number that you wouldn't identify as being first place, second place, third place, fourth place. But then you could just move the one that you're trying to move in between 2 others, and then use the row number feature only when displaying.
Mm-hmm.
So you're only then changing one number because you're just kind of slipping it in between 2 others. You could even do a query that finds out what the other 2 surrounding numbers are, what's just above the number you want it to be and what's just below the number you want it to be. And then you just cram the item that you're moving in between. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter what their number is, because you're going to use the row number feature to display it in the right order.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's
Eventually,
pretty out there.
you'll end up you'll probably end up with numbers that are close to each other if you do a lot of reordering them.
Yeah, true. But you could touch them all occasionally instead of every time. But that's kind of out there. That's not very clean, I admit.
Mhm. Does anybody have an opinion on if, say that I was dealing with a few hundred, do you think this would still work pretty well, or do you think that that's gonna start taking up more time at that point?
I think what you're doing would work quite well with a few hundred. I don't think that you'd notice much of a difference.
Cool. And does anybody like this approach? And I mean, should I share it somewhere? Or... It's worked out pretty well for this use case, like I was saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
Campfire contribution.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, because I'm going, I haven't had a need for that, and I'm going, well, that's kind of cool the way that's working. But there's a lot of analysis there for it when you haven't tried to do that.
Cool. Well, that was what I wanted to share with you. Does anybody else have any other thoughts about this, or something else they want to bring to the group?
Well, I want to revisit the data structure. Like if you were to store your sort order as a decimal, the end result always going to be a whole number. It's going to have decimal 000 after it. But you've got 3 updates in here, from, if I'm counting correctly, whereas the decimal approach, I think, has 1. So I don't know. I think that if you're trying to minimize the processing time and cycles, that the decimal approach probably is more efficient. It doesn't have the human satisfying feature of seeing an integer that's very clean and no decimals, but it's going to present as an integer.
when you see it, it'll be a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4.
You're saying if you design your your output to do that, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah. Mhm. So use this row number for the output only is what you're suggesting.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
well, no. So the number is the data type is going to be a floating point, but so you have one update that will cram the item that you're moving in between two others. So there's one update that makes it a 2.5, let's say, and then another procedure sweeps through them all and finds them or defines them in their row order number, and then updates them all to be whole numbers again.
Oh, okay.
So they are stored as whole numbers, whole in respect that there's no actual decimal places besides zeros that come after it. And then when you present it, you present integers with that because there are no decimals by definition. So I guess I would have two updates where you've got three, and I don't know.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't
So
thoroughly analyzed.
well,
how
yeah.
many
So this
records you're
first
getting.
update is just updating the I guess it's updating the ones that are after. That's what and word is greater than the new word. So they're
Mhm.
updating the ones after the placement of the moved item, and then this one is. I'm analyzing my own stuff right here now. Okay, so this is right. Okay, so this is doing the ordering. Yep, I see what you're saying. So
If you count the number of records that are being updated, I'd say this is probably more.
Yeah,
It looks like more because some of them are getting updated twice. Everything that's after is getting updated twice, isn't it?
yes, that's right, because they're getting updated to a greater number, and then they get updated again to fall in line to make everything sequential.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So this looks very effective, and I'm sure it works, or you wouldn't be showing us. So in that respect, I think great, fine. But if you're talking about is there a more efficient way, maybe.
Yeah, I get it.
Maybe.
Yeah, that does make sense actually. Yep. Cool.
It's fun to look at stuff like that. Glad you brought it up.
When you do this, does your new record that you're inserting already have the order value, the new order value? So are you making space and then coming back in a subsequent step and adding that other record into the new space?
So the inputs for this are the lesson ID is the one that's being moved. I'm passing in the section that the lesson ID belongs to, and I'm passing in the new order location of this lesson ID. So this is the number of where the lesson ID is going to be in the order of all the lessons now. So say it was in 2 and you moved it to 3, you're going to get the lesson ID and you're going to get 3 here. And so then in the query, we're taking all the updated order. Let's see. The new word is the right. So yeah, we're taking that, and so that's new ord is the new location, and then so then we're taking that and we're saying that everything that comes after that new order location, we're going to add 1 to it, right? You see the logic now, right?
I see that. What I was trying to figure out is what happens if you're moving instead of you're going from 2 to 3, are you always going up? What if you're moving 3 to 2?
Yeah, same logic. What and the way so if you're moving 3 to 2, that's going up, right? No, well, I see what you're saying. Yeah, going down. Yeah, but it's going to take everything that happens after that, and it's going to make sure that it's greater than the new order. But then everything gets reordered at the end because I'm putting everything into the CTA we're taking that entire thing and we're updating the order of all of them
Okay.
to the row number. So we're getting a row number here using the row number function and getting
Right.
and then we're updating all of them to set them to equal the row number that they got during this function.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just as I was trying to understand it, I was going, well, do you send yourself into some sort of loop if the record you're updating is in the
No.
in the set? But I guess okay.
No, it doesn't. Yep.
Okay.
Do you want the orders to be updated in the records immediately after someone drags them around, or is there maybe a time where the user is deciding and they're playing and they're moving things up and down, and then they can sort of hit a button at the end that says, okay, this is the one I want. This is the order that I want.
That would be a good improvement. No, I mean, right now it is definitely doing what you said first is that as soon as the drop happens, the problem I think is that where do I get that final order from? If I wait until they've done all their drag and drops, it's got to be I'm sure it's stored somewhere, but because if we don't run any actions, that dragging and dropping is really just front end. So the actions are what's actually saving what you're doing.
Yeah, so I think you could get creative with this if you wanted to have that playtime before setting. So I think you could even do something with JavaScript because you can run a procedure that would just update a div, the contents of a div in a row based on its ordinal position from top to bottom, all with the same class, that kind of thing. And JavaScript is very fast when it runs.
Yeah.
So if you're dragging things around, it could reorder them visually with the number set into divs. And then at the end, when you hit the magic button at the end, it could go find those values and just set them. So I don't know if that's where you're going, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually, because if somebody's having a hard time making up their mind and they do a whole bunch of movement and we're touching the database every time, that's that's not useful.
A lot of movement going on.
Yeah. So who's going to design that? I'm just kidding.
I've done a bunch of stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't already have it. I kind of get into the JavaScript, using it together with what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Usually works out pretty well.
Cool. Well, if you find it, be great to share it. See, does anybody else have anything else they want to bring to the group? I
do have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Earlier today, I was looking at a listing, and it had the title of the module up at the top of the listing. And so I went into settings and I unchecked that box for show title or display title, whatever it says. And returning to the page, refreshing it, it still has the rounded corner box where the title was in. The box is still there. And I would have thought that removing the title would have removed the section that the title was in as well.
So you're talking about this whole thing right here, right?
Well, if you were to, yeah, but I think if you were to remove the search, you'd get down to just the words lesson list, and it would be in that rounded corner border
Yeah,
area.
yeah. So let's do this. Let's just take and this is totally a system that is I can experiment with. So I'm going to use the one we're looking at already. So this is interesting because this is something that was that has been discussed, and I hope that it's still that working as intended. But anyway, so yes, this is the checkbox you're talking about right here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's deselect that, and let's do a Dale, and we're going to increment through this. And
I think I know where you're going, and
so this is so now
I'm
we
gonna
see
be
that.
embarrassed.
So now we don't have a title anymore, right? So let's go back and look at this again, and let's go to our buttons and to the root buttons, and I'm going to say bottom for this one, and bottom for this one, and save that change. Take a reload of it, and so we're gradually. So you see where I'm going is that we need to get rid of everything here. So then, if I go back to lessons list and settings and disable search and disable filters.
Anything that's occupying that spot.
Yeah, and then there might be another one, but let me just see. So I suspect what your situation is that you may not have any filters enabled, any fields that are filterable, but you have filters enabled. That's what I think. So you're actually, and that's a situation where you see an empty box. And I think that if that's the case, then I think that that's an argument for improvement there. But let me just go back and
But you were moving those things to the bottom instead of the top, right?
yes, the buttons I moved to the bottom. Yes, but I don't. Filters are just enabled or disabled.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Wow, there's an idea. Let's allow them to be moved to the bottom. That's
in some cases that would probably be good.
Yeah, probably would work in some cases. Yeah. But if
But
I
wouldn't
go
want to create a rounded corner border box at the bottom.
Right. Yeah. So
to try to get rid of it at the top.
Yeah. I see what you're saying there. Yep. So we're going to enable filters, and then I'm going to go here and let's see. Let's make sure. I think that was it, but I just want to make sure that this one here. Okay. Save that. Reload. And so now, indeed, I don't have any filters, but I have filters enabled. So I have this rounded box here.
Yep, that's me.
Yep.
So I just need to disable the filters. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, from settings. Yep. Not from the individual fields like I just did, but from the listing settings. You disable the filters there. Yep. So those are the criteria that you have to have filters disabled. You have to have search disabled. Yep. And title disabled. And if you have buttons, root buttons, your buttons need to be on the bottom, vertical position bottom.
Sure. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Then,
well, that's
if all four of those are met, then you get rid of the box.
Okay. That's good to see. Can I follow it up with another question that's related?
Yes.
I use listings for a lot of things, and sometimes I just want I just want rows, and I'm going to fill the rows with like one column, but the column's going to be a computed column, and I'm going to put my own stuff in there. Like it's going to have multiple divs. It's going to have Flexbox, and everything. And so then I want to give those that content a background color. And what I have noticed is they don't go my computed column doesn't go all the way across the listing. It goes most of the way, but it looks like there's some room reserved at the far right, or maybe not, depending if I think it's reserved for the
Have you
buttons that might be there.
inspected it? Have you inspected it? I think it's for item buttons, I think, but
Yeah, I have, and I think that's what it's for.
yeah.
And I have gone to great lengths to display none on the item buttons because I didn't need them in that case. But I was wondering if there is sometimes I just want to put my own stuff in there and I don't need the buttons.
I don't have any data. Let's see, let's go get some data in this. Oh, wow. Well, this looks like this is actually working pretty well. Oh, no, wait, it's right here, isn't it? It's right. Is it this space right? That's good. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what you're talking about right there, isn't it? Yep. Yeah. Yep, and that's the item button reserved space. So yeah, if there's no item buttons, then it'd be nice to not have that TD there, or to have some sort of CSS on the TD that minimizes it.
Right. I think this is, for my case, this is an observation that it's
Yeah.
there. I have an example I could show you if you're interested, but it just comes down to the background of my page is black. And so when I paint any colors in the rows at all, the color goes all the way over except for that last quarter of an inch.
Right.
Doesn't get
I
colored.
see. Yeah.
So
I mean, could you make your somehow make your CSS apply to that TD as well?
yeah, I've hidden it. I've displayed none. I've applied the background color to it. It's just I was just wondering if this has been
Okay.
covered already. See, it's more work.
Yeah.
That's all. And now I have to dig into the CSS, and then I have to put the CSS on the page somehow.
So the class is item buttons dash item dash buttons space align dash right. But yeah, I definitely get you there.
So by the way, and I'm sorry to take over your spot here, but I was just thinking I have to put CSS on the page somehow, and that reminded me that with a little bit of Ben's help from a previous session, what I've been doing lately is I'll make a file where I store the CSS that I want to use on a page, and I'll name it appropriately, typically matching the page name, put it in the root folder, and then I use a form somewhere on the site. It doesn't have to be on the same page, probably shouldn't be, and it will get the contents of that CSS file and throw it into a large text box that doesn't have any extra formatting added. I can edit the CSS and hit a save button, which will put it right back into that text-based file. Save it, and then, of course, another action in the stack would be to refresh the cache. And so instantly I am editing on the screen without going somewhere else to find an editor that'll get into the root folder. And I can change the CSS for the entire page. So I thought I'd share it.
You want to show that? Or if you're not ready to show,
yeah, I need to remember where I was.
Oh, okay, all right.
All right. While you look for that, I have a quick question, Mark. The background color that you were talking about in the grid that you're having issue with, you're applying the color to the entire row or individual cells within a row?
Right, because if you replied it to the TR, yeah, that's a good point. So there
You
I
know-
have the T.
Because I
Right.
could show, I do it all the time, and mine encompasses the entire row. And I could
So-
show you how that works, but I just don't know if that's going to work for your particular situation.
Oh, I think just knowing that you said that, I think is a plus, because I know that what I've been doing is applying my styling to my computed box that I'm adding into one column, not to the row itself. And just changing where I insert the CSS to the row would solve a lot of problems, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, if Patrick, if you let me share really
Yeah,
quick, I
sure.
can show.
Yep, I think I have an example of where I've done that as well.
Sure. I've done alternating colors on rows, and that was straightforward. It's been a while since I did that, but
Are you still looking for it, Ben?
No, I'm just figuring out which screen
Oh.
I'm sharing.
yeah.
Because I have multiple.
Yeah,
There we go.
Me too.
Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this.
Yep.
Right, okay. So basically, this is the grid. As you could see, it's a band. It goes all the way across. It encompasses the column with the buttons. So whether there were buttons there or not, it's going to do the right background. I will say this as a caveat, and I don't know if this was fixed in later versions, but it's just something that really irks the living daylights out of me. I don't know if you see that right there. There's like a 1 to 2 pixel shift, and it's a little bit white up here, and it's a little bit lower here, and it's the button column
it's the button
that does it.
column. Mm-hmm.
The button column does not align correctly with the rest of the grid. Because all I'm doing here is I'm saying make the row with that color, and when it gets right to the button column, whack, it like moves like a pixel or two down. Most people don't even notice it, but I'm just like that type A where I'm looking and I'm like, I see that and I'm like, oh, that annoys me. But anyway.
I can see it in the rows that are below that one as well.
Yeah, it happens over the line. You can see the break lines. It happens everywhere.
Now I have to go look at my stuff and see if
yeah, I don't know if it's been fixed elsewhere, but the version that I'm on, it does that.
I'm
If it's been fixed in the future, great.
I'm looking at a BS5, and I don't see that in a BS5 listing.
Okay, maybe it's a BS3 thing.
I do see it in a BS3 listing that I have, but I don't see it in a BS5 listing.
Gotcha. All right, so basically it's similar to what you said. It's a blank field that I've created in here, my own calculated field. So I just blank out the title so that there's, nothing in there. And then basically what I do is the very first thing is I create a div, I give it an ID, and I just put something in front of it so I know it's unique. And then I throw in whatever the ID of that record is, a unique value. And then I just add this script. And in this case, it's looking for other information, but in your case, it wouldn't matter. All you would do is you would need something like this, where you would say the ID, unique ID of that row, that div, and then you want to find the closest row, table row, and change the style background color to whatever you want. That affects the entire row for this one cell, wherever this one cell is located. So it's basically the CSS is traversing up the tree, starting from wherever this is, and it's finding the closest table row. So it's going up, and as soon as it hits a table row, it applies the background color, which affects that entire row, including the buttons.
You must have shared this somewhere, and I copied it from you because I'm looking at what I did, and it's nearly identical, not quite, but but nearly.
I may have thrown this up on one of the previous campfires and something else that I've written, who the heck knows, but I use this all the time.
Yeah.
And now I will too.
I've actually gone so far. This is actually kind of old because I was going to say, I think I have a new, now that's if my macro works. Let me see something. I got to remember what my macro name was.
So Patrick,
Uh,
hopefully you're making a note to tag that
Yeah, teacher.
this little piece in our video. So later on when I go, how do we highlight that row? I can find Ben's code.
Well, we will tell
Yeah.
AI to tag this for us right now.
I use macros to write a lot of my stuff that I do over and over again. I just have to remember what the macro name was. But this is basically my new version, because I constantly was forgetting what the color codes were. So basically now this is
Oh
what
yeah.
I kind of throw in. So all of the color codes are just pre-written, and I just have to take the name of it and throw that in here. So I know if I want blue, it's info, green
Where are
is
you putting that,
success.
Ben?
Hmm?
Where are you putting this text that you're showing us? Where is that in the listing? Is that in a column?
It's the same thing. It's computed field.
Okay, that just means that this content's being repeated for every row.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
it's identical, so it's not conflicting with anything.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not conflicting basically because of this. And then each row has its own little script. And for me, like I use this all the time and it does not eat up any time. As you could see, it just right there.
It
Blink.
takes up a little teeny bit of space, but unless you figure out a way around that, but it does in your listing, it takes up just a tiny bit of space. Like
Right. It's
yeah,
ever so minuscule.
You
Like,
yeah,
mean like
yeah,
horizontal space, visual
yeah, right
space?
there.
yes, there it is, right there.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
But there's really, unfortunately, not really much you can do about that because that's just the way the grid works. You put in a column, it
Mhm.
needs to put the column somewhere.
Right.
The problem is that if you hide it, then the script won't run because
Mhm.
the grid won't actually render that column. And if it
Mhm.
doesn't render that column, your script will never run. That data has to be transmitted to the client because the client is the one that's actually doing this coloring. You
Mhm.
know, it's doing the
Is-
work. So
If you set that column to be a detail view only, does it remove it from the grid but leave it available in the?
That's a good question.
Because I've done things
Mm,
like that, but I haven't done this particular.
I think if you make it a detail view column only, I think it's not going to be in the grid, so it's still not gonna work. It's not gonna do what you need.
yeah, if it, like I
Yeah,
said, if the grid is dropping it and not rendering it at all, then it won't run the script.
because it relies on knowing that it's this row. That's what it's relying on that.
Okay.
Well, this is a good example of why we come to these meetings, because I was doing it one way and I had this little issue, but someone else in the group had a better way to do it. And now we've all learned. So happy that you guys are doing this and helping out.
So, Mark, your question or your comment about doing that technique, but you're referencing a file somewhere? Is
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Do you want me to say more or what's your question?
Well, I just said I just want to make sure I heard it right. So you're using that static text box and just doing like an include or something onto the page.
In DNN itself, you could, well, actually, no. Yeah, you can assign a JavaScript file to any page in DNN, but you can't assign a CSS page to any page in DNN using DNN tools. So I've been placing a action form somewhere on the same page, and in its on init, I believe, I grab the text file, load the static text file, I think is the name of the action, and that brings the CSS file to the page on init.
Okay.
Very cool. Yeah, I'd
It
love to
works quite well
see
because
that.
then we're only putting the CSS on the one page that needs it.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, um, and I only say this because I've done this in not what you're doing, but I've done things in the past where I've put an action form on a page just so that I can kind of get something on there, but not necessarily that I'm using the action form for the
Visually.
purpose of making a form.
Mhm.
And what I notice is there's a lot of overhead. Just putting a form on, even if you're not really displaying anything, you're not using it for the purpose of a form, you're creating a lot of overhead on that page for something that's very minor. So my question is, have you ever considered doing that same exact thing you're doing, but instead of doing it as an action form, creating a token, throwing it just into a straight HTML form? Like having a razor script token look up, you can make it dynamic. So you have parameters that you pass a token. So you say what file locally on your directory structure it is that you're looking to load. It will take that and then dump that into script tags or whatever you need, style tags, and automatically do that in an HTML module, which will load notoriously faster and without any of the additional overhead. Because all you're really doing is you just want to insert custom CSS or custom scripts or whatever it is you want into your page.
That is a good idea. I think we would really have to analyze if that is actually faster or if it's faster enough to make a difference. Because now you're shifting some work to calling a token, and the token needs to be run as well. And it's it's the same effort that the form was performing.
Oh,
But
I
I know
can
that
I
you're not
can almost
bringing the form to
I
the
can almost
page.
guarantee you that it's going to work faster. That's almost
Well,
an
I'll believe you.
assurity, because don't forget, when you're using the form, it has a lot of its own stuff that it has to load to work and function in and of itself, under the assumption that you're going to be putting fields and buttons and this and that. So it has its own overhead. If you're just using a straight HTML module, it's not loading any of those additional dependencies. It's just basically saying, take this token, which the token is going to say, okay, look in this folder, grab this file, take the contents, dump it in here. That's it. And then the page renders.
Well,
To me, I've done that before, and I was putting JavaScript in the page, not CSS, and I had some considerations on knowing and controlling when the JavaScript was actually being initiated. Like, when is it being read by the page, and when is it taking its action that it's designed to take? If it's just going to load something that the user is going to initiate later, it's creating a listener. It doesn't matter too much. But if it needs to run right when the page is being loaded, I think I had issues with the timing that the JavaScript was coming in with the token. But and it's not a complaint. It's more like a consideration. If you're going to do this, that might be something that needs to be analyzed. But
cool.
CSS, I would think, would be great, like in all cases.
Well, I'm going to put a wrap on this there, and maybe we can talk about this some more in our Afterglow session, which I hope you guys stick around for. But thank you all for participating today, and for lots of great conversation, and happy low coding. Stay around if you have some more time.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks.